Hi, Lynn. Thank you so much for being with us today at Oceania Catholic Homeschooler. Firstly, how long have you homeschooled for, and how many kids did
Oh,
you homeschool?
it's really lovely to be here, Anastasia. I've been homeschooling since 1997, so
Wow.
we're coming up to 20, nearly 28 years. So we started kind of towards the end of that year. Pulled a child out of school before she was being bullied, and then the following, so we pulled her out towards the end of the year and began looking at homeschooling. We looked at other options for schooling for her, and by the time school started the following January, we'd pulled um, the three children out and began our journey.
Wow. And can you tell me a little bit more about what prompted you to start homeschooling? How did you find out about homeschooling as an option?
Okay, I had actually wanted to homeschool from the beginning. I had I believed that it was something that the Lord put on my heart to do. My husband is a school teacher, along with much of my mother-in-law, couple of sister-in-laws. His family are very big, all school teachers. So it wasn't really something that they favoured. It wasn't something my husband favoured as a school teacher himself. Um, so our children, so the older three, went to school for a short time. Um, but it was something it had always that I just felt that the Lord had called me to, but I had left it in His hands. So when we had this situation and at the school with the bullying, and we just really weren't sure which way to go, my husband said, "Okay, let's homeschool for 6 months and then review it." And 28 years later, we are still homeschooling our youngest two children. So yeah,
I
so
never gone back.
they've never gone back. Mm.
With homeschooling, do you tend to do it with curriculums, or do you make up your own curriculums, or do you have preferred resources? How do you do that?
So the first year we started off with a packaged curriculum. It was a Protestant curriculum, um, but back then we didn't have the resources available, and I had um, found some support through some other Catholics, not Catholics, sorry, other Christian homeschoolers that lived locally, and it was a good fit for our family at that time. But all I needed was that 1 year, and then after that, we were able to start replacing some of the Protestant material with Catholic material um, as we came across it. And really began to develop our own curriculum and our own program that suited us. But just that first year, I needed something to help me jump into the homeschooling way of life, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. What were some of the resources for everyone watching this? Like, what are some of the resources you'd recommend?
But I'd recommend. Okay, we've been we're a little bit eclectic, and we have switched gears in our homeschooling style depending on the needs of individual children, but very influenced by Charlotte Mason's philosophy of education and that kind of mixing of a classical curriculum, a classical education alongside that Charlotte Mason type of response. Good literature, a lot of a lot of living literature, a lot of living books. We read. My children, myself, we've all been quite voracious readers. So literature has had played a very large part in our homeschooling.
Mm.
which is yeah, so that would be, but resources, it would depend on what you look. I don't um gosh, I was a bit of a curriculum junkie. I've got so many resources. But for the how-tos, things like and I don't know kind of what's out there now, but something that really helped shape me was Elizabeth Foss's Real Education, which is a Charlotte Mason type. And I think what really was really good for me about that was this was a mother of 7 children writing about homeschooling from her own perspective, where so much out there was, a mother of one or two or three, which when you're schooling large numbers of children, um, it's very hard to see how it corresponds to your own life. But I found that very helpful. Um,
Yeah, because you're a really large family, don't you?
we do. We have 13 children.
Oh.
They've all been homeschooled. As I said earlier, we're homeschooling our last two. So our youngest in school year terms would have just started high school. So he's around that year 7 age, and then our second youngest is um, he would be in year 10.
When you've been homeschooling them as they've gone through all of the ages and stages, how have you seen homeschooling help them develop as a person? And have you seen it help them as they grew up and left home and went and did things?
Yeah. Um, I think one of the biggest pluses for us, because we have a lot of um, learning problems in our children. Like we have a very strong dyslexia gene. Um, all of my children suffer from some degree of dyslexia and print disability, some more than others. And this is really, really strong in my family. So it's given us the ability to work to, and to adapt curriculum to suit their needs and their struggles. And it's allowed us to maintain their self-esteem and their learning while making allowances for where their struggles are. We had, and this has been quite um, like a common thing with our children, that when we've taken them for assessments to get ideas of what might help them, well, reading abilities have been because of their dyslexia below their age group, their vocabulary, their comprehension, um, their word knowledge has all been a few years above.
Wow.
um, yeah, like in those sort of testing circumstances where we've gone, a couple of them have been helped by colored glasses. For some children that didn't work, so we always tried to seek and seek out what was going to help each individual child, and what worked for one child didn't always work for the next child. Um, so what I found with homeschooling them was often their self-esteem, which could have been eroded in a school setting, was preserved by homeschooling. Um,
And then you can
yeah,
give them each you can customize the programs and that to suit each child's specific need, which is so
yeah,
beautiful because then they can get what they need.
that yeah, that's that's it. And so I think that's probably been one of the biggest benefits for me, but just the family relationships, the lifestyle relationships that keeps the family unit um, together in a different way than sending them to school does. So yeah, that's been a great benefit too, I think.
Really grow in love for each other as a family. And can you tell me a bit more about how you help to educate the children in the faith through homeschooling and really grow their faith?
Okay, yeah. So we live in a very liberal diocese, and so teaching the faith has always been really, really important to have that come through home, as it should always be. But often, what our children were seeing out in the community, even in our Catholic community, were contrary to church teaching, and contrary to Christian belief. So it was something that we always took very, very seriously. Um, and I've lost track of what I was saying, but um, yeah, we really, because we were also in the country and we're a little bit isolated, and we didn't have, we were fortunate enough to have another Catholic homeschooling family living close enough that we could have some contact with. But a lot of the time we were on our own. So we began actually in conjunction with this other local family. Um, we actually began a homeschooling camp, a Catholic homeschooling camp in 2001. So the two families came together, and we worked together for many, many years, um, and are still running this camp to bring in priests and catechists, and so that's been one of the big things. But also to bring in other Catholic children for our children to connect with. And I know my older children who have married and still have lifelong friends that they made at camp. They've been best men and bridesmaids, and for each other.
Wow.
So it was twofold. It was to build relationships, but it was also to encourage them in their faith, and also going to different events, where it's a pilgrimage, or whether it's something um, like a prayer vigil. um, I'm just trying to think, but something like the March for Life, which is very prominent now in Sydney, not so much when our older children were younger, but just getting them to those sort of things. Going on, for many, many years, we've gone on the Christus Rex pilgrimage, and getting to other homeschooling camps where they can connect with other like-minded families.
It sounds like you've done something really, really wonderful with these camps. What's the general structure of a camp like?
Okay, so we generally speaking, we've run kind of Sunday evening till Friday, although it's getting harder and harder to get that Monday to Friday block. And this year it will be Saturday to Wednesday. And we generally start each morning at 9 with mass. And our general structure for the day is maths at some camps. And this isn't an organized thing. This is something kind of that organically comes together depending on who the families are. But often there'll be some people that will be chanting the office earlier than that, and people are free to come and join, or not. But we usually start with mass, morning tea, and then there'll be a few hours of talks or catechesis, depending on the age and what outside people have come in. So some years we've had people come in and do catechesis of the Good Shepherd with younger children. Other years we've had groups like the Culture Project have come in and worked with the teenagers. So every year it would just depend on who our speakers. Sometimes we invite priests in to do a one-off talk. So it would just depend on who the Lord brings brings to us. But there's always some talks and activities in the morning, lunch, and then more in the afternoon. And we also try to have some sort of physical activity through the day, some sort of sporting event or for a number of years we had a beachside location, so we might head to the beach for an hour or two after our activities are over in the afternoon. Evening time, we would then, dinner, and then we always finished our day with, well, not finish the day, but after dinner, we would come together for adoration with the rosary and benediction. So usually, most years, we would have a 24-hour period of exposition where there is someone before the Blessed Sacrament for 24 hours from that from the end of that adoration, rosary, benediction time until the beginning of Mass the following morning. So we'll have an all-night prayer vigil. And then some other activity after we're finished that it could be games, trivia night, barn dance, concert night. It's a little bit different every year, but that's our general structure.
Wow, it sounds like a really fun-filled and very, very authentically Catholic
It is
event.
authentic. Yeah, it is authentically Catholic, very, very much so. The priest that was chaplain for almost 20 years, Father Terence Mary Norton. Um, so, so our masses were always extraordinary form masses, and that has continued even though he's no longer providing chaplaincy. So it has been very, it has, yeah, it we are, and I say to people, we are unapologetically Catholic. I actually had a non-Catholic ask one year whether they could come. I said, I don't know why you would want to, but I'll just warn you. Um, and she did come, and she is now Catholic. But
Wow.
and
Wow.
but that was an extraordinary situation, I think. Yeah.
What a blessing. What a blessing to have something so authentically Catholic and in our modern, still going on in our modern world today.
Yeah, we've been very blessed. We've been very blessed by the priests that we've had, and by just by those that have given their time to come and minister to us. So yeah, it's been a great blessing. So heading for our 24th year this year.
Wow. Wow, what a milestone. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for so much for sharing about it with us. And it was been great to talk to you. And thank you to everyone watching this.
You're most welcome. It's been lovely talking to you.